In Lesson 05, Example 1, you will learn about multiplying and dividing decimals. When you multiply decimals, you do not need to line up the decimal. You just stack up the numbers, having everything lined up on the right-hand side like you would multiplying whole numbers. So in our first example, I'm going to just stack up the two numbers, lining it up on the right-hand side. And also, before I actually do my multiplying, I'm going to decide whether my answer is going to be positive or negative. I find that a lot of times kids forget about the signs because they get so busy working on the multiplication that they forget about this negative here. A positive times a negative, when you have one of each, is always going to be negative, or good things happening to bad people is bad. Now let's go ahead and do our multiplying. You start in this bottom corner. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 7 is 14. And then to figure out where the decimal point goes, you want to count up how many numbers there are after the decimal in the problem. There's a total in this question of 2 numbers after the decimal point in the problem, so I need to have 2 numbers after the decimal point in my answer. So this answer is going to be 1 and 44 hundredths, actually a negative 1 and 44 hundredths. This is also a good time to point out that sometimes when you multiply, you actually end up with a number smaller than what you started with. A lot of times kids think when you multiply, it automatically gets bigger, and that's not the case. If you multiply by a number that's between 0 and 1, or in this case between 0 and negative 1, it's going to actually get smaller. Let's go ahead and try the next one. Again, before I even start, I'm going to determine positive or negative for my answer. I have one of each, so it's going to be negative, because bad things happening to good people is bad. Now when I stack it up, I have 5 and 4 tenths times 25 hundredths. Again, you do not need to line up the decimal points. You just make sure that it's all the way over to the right like this. Now when you go ahead and multiply, start in the bottom corner again. 5 times 4 is 20. So we put down the 0 and carry the 2. And then 5 times 5 is 25, plus the 2 extra is 27. Now after I've multiplied everything by the 5, I'm going to go ahead and cross out that 2 so I don't accidentally use it again. I'm going to put a 0 here to hold the place and keep things lined up. So when I move over to the 2, the first multiplication problem I do is going to go underneath the 2. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 5 is 10. Now you're going to take these 2 rows of numbers and add them together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 8 is 15. So put down the 5, carry the 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 0 is still 3, and then 1. Now to figure out where our decimal point goes, there's a total of 1, 2, 3 numbers after the decimal in the problem, so I need 3 numbers after the decimal in the answer. But when I go write my final answer, I really don't need this 0 at the end. 1 and 350 thousandths is the same thing as 1 and 35 hundredths. So negative 1 and 35 hundredths. Now we're going to move on to everybody's favorite, long division. First of all, in a long division problem, this number right here is the one that's going to go under the division symbol, and this number right here is the one that's going to go on the outside. Again, I would make sure to decide before I even start whether the answer is going to be positive or negative. When you have 2 signs that are the same, the answer is always going to be positive. bad things happening to bad people is good. So I'm not going to worry about putting a sign there since it's positive. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the numbers where they belong. 23 and 94 hundredths is going to go right there. And 10 and 10 and 5 tenths is going to go out here. When you are dividing decimals, this number right here cannot be a decimal number. So we're going to have to move this decimal point right here. Actually, what we're doing is we're multiplying this number by 10, because when you multiply by 10, you just move the decimal one place to the right. But in order to keep this equivalent, I need to also move this number over, the decimal over 1, by multiplying it by 10. So I'm really going to do this problem. 239 and 4 tenths divided by 105. Now, before you begin your division, I would go ahead and put your decimal point straight up into your answer after you've moved it to start. And now we want to look and see how many times 105 goes into 2. It doesn't go into 2, so sometimes I like to just put a little X there so I keep things lined up in the right spot. It also doesn't go into 23, but it does go into 239, and I know that goes in there 2 times. 2 times 105 is 210. So I'm going to go ahead and write 210 right here. And then I'm going to subtract 239 minus 210. 9 minus 0 is 9. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 2 minus 2 is 0. This number you get right here should always be smaller than this number. If it's not, you didn't use the right number here. If this is bigger, that means it would have gone in there more times and you'll have to adjust your problem or adjust your answer. But it is smaller, so we're on the right track. Now I need to move this 4 down, bring the 4 down. I like to draw the arrow showing I'm bringing it down so that way I can keep track of where I'm at in the problem. Now 105 is going to go into 294 2 times, which again is 210. Now we're going to subtract. 4 take away 0 is 4, 9 take away 1 is 8, and 2 take away 2 is 0. So we have 84 left. We need to add a 0 and bring it down. Now we have to figure out how many times 105 goes into 840. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be 8 times, but if I'm not sure, I can always just check the multiplication on the side. 105 times 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 0 is 0 plus the 4 extra. And 8 times 1 is 8. So 840 was correct. It worked out actually perfect. So we're going to put an 8 right here. And 8 times 105 was 840. And now when I subtract, I have a remainder of 0 down here, so I am done with the problem. And we had already said it was going to be positive. So 2 and 28 hundredths is the answer for that problem. Now would maybe be a good time to pause the video and try the next problem on your own. All right, the answer for that one is 2 and 85 hundredths, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And when you write the problem, you're going to need to move the decimal 1 place over here, 1 place over here. So you're going to be doing 68 and 4 tenths divided by 24. And when you work that all out, you end up with 2 and 85 hundredths.